Professor Tlengiwe Mkhize, other ministers who are also here with us, Ms. Anne Chituku Shongwe, representing UN Women, the chair of the Commission on Gender Equality, Equity, and other commissioners who are also here, the premier of our province here in Limpopo, Ndate Chupu Matabata, the MECs of our provincial government here in Limpopo, Likhoshi Arena, Yamori Linghona, Mayor Warena Walipalale Municipality, Councillor Jack Maeko, and all other councillors who are also here, the leaders of various non-governmental organizations who have joined us in this most important launch of 16 days. Ladies and gentlemen, Dumelang. Today is an important day globally for women all over the world. It is a UN-recognized International Day. We are pleased to be part of this most important internationally recognized day when we begin as South Africans the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. But we should also remember, even as we launch these 16 days of activism, that in our case as South Africans, we should view these 16 days as 365 days of all of us as South Africans being focused on taking action against the abuse of women and children in our country. So today it is 365 days. The crisis of violence against women and children is what you could call a great shame on our nation. There are many other countries around the world who are having to deal with the same type of crisis. But today, as South Africans, we need to be taking it much more seriously, because this crisis and this scourge of violence against women and children essentially goes against our African values and everything that we stand for as a people. As we were growing up, we were taught that as men and boys, we must respect women and protect children. We were taught to never ever raise your hand against a woman, but many South African men have taken to doing that as they abuse the women of our country, rape them, and even go to an extent of killing them. Our communities are in the grip of violence against those we are supposed to protect. As I stand here before you, I invoke the memories of many women and young women in this province and throughout the country who have suffered from the brutality of men. We remember 6-year-old Buitumelo Matsikoleng from Siraheng village, who we buried last month. Her young life cut short by a man who raped her and left her for dead. We remember 11-year-old Tandi Mampane from Hamarishani village, who went missing from her home in September and whose body was found a week later. We remember 59-year-old Mamampe Pusofi Vukeya, a grandmother from Mushwana village, who was attacked while collecting firewood and died in hospital in June after being raped and beaten. We also remember 2-year-old Samson Sitole from Siraheng village, who was kidnapped, raped and murdered in December last year, and his tiny body thrown into the bush. These cowardly criminals have absolutely demonstrated that they have no regard for the sanctity of human life. And as they perpetrate their criminal deeds, they do not discriminate. The young are attacked, as are the elderly as well. Boys are raped and abused, as well as girls. They impose their toxic masculinity on those who are gay, straight, transgender, and bisexual. We are here today to unite as the people of South Africa by saying enough is enough. This must come to an end. Because we have truly had enough. We have truly had enough of these acts, the brutal acts, and we have truly had enough about reading and hearing about all these excruciatingly sad stories on a daily basis. We have heard the calls by our communities, including the people of Lephalale, for government to do more to end gender-based violence. 2 months ago, we announced the emergency action plan that has seen 1.6 billion rand of government funding being reprioritized towards programs that tackle gender-based violence. This is real money that we've been able to find even during this very period as our budgetary year is coming to an end. But the fact that we were able to find this money means that we can do much more in the coming years, as we must. We must mobilize and deploy more resources to tackling this scourge in our country. This focuses on improving access to justice for survivors, prevention campaigns to change attitudes and behavior, measures to strengthen the criminal justice system, and the creation of economic opportunities for the women of our country who are vulnerable to abuse. Since the plan was rolled out, I have been receiving regular weekly updates from Professor Shisana on our progress. Key aspects of the plan are being implemented, and we are on schedule to meet the 6-month target that we set for ourselves. In September, a new sexual offences court was opened right here in Limpopo, in the northern part of our province in Sibasa, and 11 regional courts across all provinces have been identified for upgrades. New CCTV systems will allow survivors to testify in privacy, with privacy having been upgraded at 38 regional courts. The Thuthuzela care centers are being expanded with 3 new centers planned. When we went to the OR Tambo district to launch the new development model, which we are going to launch here in the Waterberg region, Minister Dlamini Zuma and myself were insistent on making sure that we have more Thuthuzela centers in the OR Tambo district, because as we analyze the information about the profile of the district, as we are going to do with this Waterberg district as well, we found that there were much too few Thuthuzela centers. And we immediately said we want to see more Thuthuzela centers being launched, and it is going to be done, and it will be done in the next few months. Of the 4 that we have in Limpopo, only 2 are fully operational, and we will be working with the NPA to ensure that they are all capacitated. But as Limpopo is so vast, we need to have more Thuthuzela centers. We will be analyzing this, and we will be giving a clear directive on how many more Thuthuzela centers we should have here in Limpopo to address the scourge of gender-based violence as we see it escalating in this province as well. An audit of the country's 281 designated health facilities is underway to prepare some to adopt the Thuthuzela model. Provinces are identifying underutilized buildings that can be refurbished and used as shelters. This morning, as we came in, we were taken around this police station, and we were shown a building that serves as a place where counseling can happen and where women and children who have been abused can have some refuge. I think much more needs to be done to improve the facility that we saw today. And we will be talking about it today and tomorrow to ensure that, yes, even in this area, we have a Thuthuzela center that is ready, made to meet the challenges of the scourge that we are going through now. 4 properties in Pretoria have already been refurbished and will open as shelters in the first week of December. A 100-day rapid results approach to speed up case turnaround times was launched in the Eastern Cape last Friday. It will be piloted at a number of courts with significant backlogs in the Northwest, Eastern Cape, and here in Limpopo. We are also working to reduce the gender-based violence case backlogs at forensic laboratories and are developing a tracking mechanism that will be rolled out in January of next year. National and provincial 24-hour call centers to deal with complaints against the South African Police Service and legal officers in matters of gender-based violence are up and running, and we have achieved our target of attending to all complaints within 7 days. A project to reopen unresolved murder and sexual offences cases has already begun in the Eastern Cape and will soon be operational nationally. This arose out of the issues that were raised by the women of our country, who felt that there were many who had perpetrated these rapes and murders against the women of our country, who they felt had been dropped along the way and that they needed to be given attention to once again. So this is now underway. Those who have perpetrated rapes, murders of the women of our country and children must know that we are coming, and there's not going to be any place to hide, because we will find them and they will be charged. The South African Police Service has allocated 312 new recruits who are currently undergoing basic training to the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences units. This is real progress since we announced the measures that we publicly came up with. Nearly 4,500 South African Police Service members have also received training on the provision of survivor-centered services. To date, 7,000 rape evidence collection kits have been distributed to police stations countrywide, and Limpopo received its own share of 700 kits in the first week of this month. I'd like to applaud the Minister as well as the Commissioner of Police for having acted swiftly in addressing the need that was there, which was clearly articulated by the women of our country. Thank you very much for being responsive in this regard. I encourage members of the public to contact gender-based violence command centers to alert us whenever there are all these other challenges that we continue to have. Many communities, including the Lephalale community, have told us about personnel shortages at healthcare facilities. We are working to address this problem, and the Department of Health is currently conducting an audit of forensic health nurses in Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Government employees who work with children and mentally disabled persons are being vetted against the National Register of Sex Offenders. This is also a very important development, particularly in the light of the horrendous experience that we went through with the death of Uyinen Mukwechan, where a post office worker who had been an offender in the past slipped through our systems and was re-employed without us having been able to notice it. But now we are taking care that what happened to Uyinen Mukwechan does not happen to other women again in our country. To date, over 1,200 officials have been vetted, including prosecutors as well as members of the South African Police Service, to ensure that those found guilty of gender-based violence receive punishment proportionate to the seriousness of their crimes. We are in the process of reforming existing laws around bail and sentences. This is in response to the concern and in the end the demand that was made by the women of our country, who complained that those who are found guilty, better still who are standing trial, are often given bail very easily, and those who are sentenced are given light sentences. Now, in response, they said very clearly, with clear, loud voices, that those who have been found, those who have been charged should not receive bail who have been charged for murder and for rape. And we agree with that there should be no bail for people like that. And that those who have been found guilty and have been sentenced to life imprisonment for either rape or murder of women, life sentence should mean life sentence. It should not mean that you go and serve for 5 years and thereafter you come out and you do exactly the same thing again. Life is something that we would want to mean life, that if you've raped women, you've killed women, yes, you must go to prison, and the key must be taken and thrown away somewhere for you not to find it, because you must serve your life sentence. Now, at the root of gender-based violence are sexist and patriarchal attitudes that we men continue to have. The national campaign that we are launching here today is aimed at raising awareness around the rights of women and girls, but also at changing the attitudes of men and boys. Some of our colleagues who are here were saying we must start young boys clubs. We must have men's clubs as well, where we will raise the level of consciousness and awareness about respect for women and children. Because far too many men and boys believe women are inferior, that they are the property of their husbands and their fathers, and worse yet, that women and girls deserve to be raped because of how they dress, the places they visit, the way they look, and the friends that they associate with. This campaign will complement a wider 365-day, year-round education, awareness, and prevention campaign that government will roll out in partnership with civil society. I will say it again. Violence against women is not a problem of women. It is a problem of us men. Let it be clear that women have no fault in all this, and they are not responsible for the way that we men are reacting. Our message to those who abuse women has been abundantly clear. There is no place in our society for you if you perpetrate abuse against women and children. It is to the good and decent men and boys out there who would not even dream of hurting, disrespecting, or abusing a woman that I direct my message today. Across this country, there are millions of good husbands and good fathers who protect their families and treat their boy and girl children equally, who respect their mothers and the elderly women in our communities, who are fair bosses, who do not discriminate against their female employees, who value their female classmates and fellow students. I call upon you today to join the movement to break the cycle of violence against women and children. It is you who must be positive, who must also play a positive role and be positive role models to your sons, and be a mentor and guide them in their journey through life into adulthood. We would like you to play your part in raising awareness around the rights of women to your colleagues and to your friends. The success we have registered so far in as far as implementing the emergency action plan is the fruit of really good and meaningful collaboration between government, civil society, and the private sector. And it is also a collaboration that arose out of, yes, the anger that was expressed by the women of our country. It is also a collaboration that was fraught with disagreements in the beginning, but now I'm proud to say that there is good collaboration between government, civil society, and the private sector. It demonstrates what we can do if we work together. We know that gender-based violence affects and impacts us all. None of us can be impartial or even be indifferent to it. Let us remember the words of the German playwright Bertolt Brecht, who said, "Those who stay at home when the battle begins and leave others to fight for a cause must be aware, because those who do not share in the fight will share the defeat." Close quotes. We will not be defeated by this scourge. We will turn the tide around. Let us move together as a nation, resolute and above all, in a united fashion to end gender-based violence and femicide forever. If you look at the news that's circulating around the world, you will find that, yes, a number of nations are also having to deal with this. I saw a few days ago how the women of France have also taken to the streets in the most forceful manner, because in the recent past, hundreds of women in France were killed by men of France. The same has been happening in Spain. The same has been happening in a number of other African countries, Côte d'Ivoire and others. And what this means is that us as South Africans, we must indeed make sure that the emergency plan that we have evolved does get implemented, and that we should get to a point where we no longer talk about the scourge of violence against women and children, where as a nation we are proud to know that we are a nation that respects its women, we are a nation that protects its women, and we are a nation above everything else that applauds the women of our country and the children of our country. This is something that we as South Africans should work towards, that we as South Africans should become proud of as we begin to reach higher levels of the recognition of the role that women play in our society. We should also be taking the struggle to ensure that this respect happens in the economic field as well. There are still too many women in our nation who are not paid at the same level as men, who are not recognized at the same level as men. This is a struggle that we must take up and make sure that we do indeed overcome it. Women, like all of us, have their basic human rights, and this country must respect the human rights of the women of our country. So we now launch this 16 days of activism. I would like to see all South Africans participating in this campaign, where we will be chanting just one slogan: enough is enough, and South Africa must be a better place without abuse of women and the children of our country. Thank you very much.